I'd like to call the Board of Public Works meeting of December 12th, 2016 to order. First on the agenda is to ask if anybody's recording this other than LCAT.
Shirley Tancredi for the minutes.
Thank you, Shirley. Can we go into the bill? Or
certainly, that would be,
okay.
Yeah.
Bill, why don't we put you on first on the agenda so you don't have to stay here all night?
But the good way to look at it is you're number one.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Told my wife I'll probably be home in 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, can be, or you can stay with us the rest of the night and listen to the rest of our...
Pressing issues, maybe I'll stick around, but I don't see that happening.
Okay.
I appreciate that, though. Well, because I'm here, you know I'm here to ask for something. Typically what I'm here for, but the parks, I think this is our fourth year for the dog park now. It's obviously very active. We just had all the stumps ground that were there from trees that we cut when we had the park built. And we had wood chips delivered, so it's all smoothed out now. A lot of people are talking about how nice it looks. It looks more like a park because it's nice and level and it's clean, and we keep it clean. We got a reputation, for keeping it pretty clean for a dog park, actually. But usually this time of year, I get the same kind of requests for people rushing out of work to get to the dog park, and by the time they get there, it's dark. So I said that I would come and approach you guys to see if it would be possible to get a light up there, maybe on a timer, just to run until maybe 7 o'clock or something like that, so people will have the opportunity to come after work during the winter months and enjoy the park. It would get a lot of use because I've had a lot of people wanted to sign petitions and all this kind of stuff, and I said, let me just come to the board and come to the meeting and see what we can do. I know the ice, the lake is or the pond, I should say, is lit up for ice skating, and there's a light over the pavilion that's on there at night, and nobody's even there or using it. I don't know if that's on a timer or what that is, but I thought, geez, if we just had one light like that, just in our direction, that would be great. That's all we need, and we're talking, maybe 2 to 3 hours at the most. If you're talking, I'm talking like 4 o'clock. To 6 or 7 o'clock, we'd probably do it. So I just wanted to get your take on that and see if that's something we can work towards.
I think first, let me ask a question. Doesn't the park officially close at dusk?
Dusk.
Dusk, yeah.
I think by bylaw, the park is officially closed at dusk.
Except for the ice skating, I think, which is the exemption.
Yeah.
Right, and that was put into place before the dog park too. So there's no reason why the dog park couldn't be an exemption like the ice skating. I mean, it's the same. And I still don't know why the light for the pavilion is there.
For security, because we have a lot of vandalism there, people going in there after hours, and so it's just so the police can drive by and they can see if there's anybody in there. And that's basically why the other ones around the park, though it's not for ice skating, because the ice skating is probably 3-4 weeks a year. That's right. About the extent of it. The rest of the time, it's just for security for the police to be able to look in as they drive by to see.
Well, then you could look at it that way too. Then for us, even, I mean, that would be a combination of security as well. I mean, people would use it, so it's not like you'd have undesirables using it, during that time. But people would be going there to use it after work, and that's something that would be beneficial to everybody there.
Well, I think,
the lake that's on the pavilion, what's it on, a photo cell?
Yeah, it goes at dusk to dawn.
Dusk to dawn.
Just for security, so the police can patrol and see what's going on over there. But I don't think there's any way we can do anything with that at
Why
all.
is that now? I mean,
it's just, because the park is officially supposed to be closed at dusk. That's what the reason is. Nobody's supposed to be in there after dusk. That's the police are in there, supposed to be shacking them out, except for,
Yeah, but there's a legitimate reason for it now, though.
They don't want people in there. There's too much trouble. You got kids in there, you got people in there. They don't want them in there. We're thinking about putting security cameras up so they can see when they're in there. They can go down there and shack them out of there because they're not supposed to be in there after dusk.
I just don't see that, you know, it doesn't seem like we get much respect as a legitimate park there. A lot of people using it, you know, it just...
Not at night, because there's too much vandalism, there's too many things going on there, and the stuff that we pick up out of there is dangerous stuff that's left behind when they leave, so it's become a problem. I mean, over in the playground area, it's become a real problem. A lot of vandalism and just people in there, and the cops...
Are there lights over there?
No.
We did install a security camera there now. There is pointing to the playground as a result of, and we end up a steel gate that gets locked every night, so nobody can pull into that rear parking lot because of that issue.
There's problems. We do have problems in the park. So.
Well, we haven't had any problems.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think partly because there are responsible people there. I think that's what's probably keeping them away more than anything. I think before the dog park was even there was a lot of issues with that area where the dog park is. And now those issues are basically gone because we're occupying it and using it. You know? I mean, is it an expense issue, or is it?
No, it's an issue that the park is closed after dusk.
Can we do something about that? Can we have an exemption for that?
Just opening up a problem. We're just trying to expand a problem, because then if you do that, then they go over there and say, well, you gave permission to be over there, well, just move over there and we'll hang out over there. And, you know, we don't. It's been an issue for a long time with us and the police trying to patrol it and take care of the problem.
I go over there even after dark, and there are people in the dark there, basically, and relying on the big wide parking lot lights to try to illuminate whatever there is. Their eyes just get used to being there, and they're standing around in the dark, standing around in there, which is not good, because then you can't see what the dog's doing, you know, but I don't know.
No, I don't think we can help on that. I think that's too much of a problem right now. We can't encourage people to go in and use it after dusk.
I think part two, it's a fairly secluded area of the park as well, so at nighttime, even if it's lit, it's not very visible from the street.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm talking about shutting off at 6 or 7 o'clock too, though. You know, it's not like it'd be on all night either, you know?
I mean, the lights that are in there right now aren't on timers.
Right.
They're on photocells, which is a much simpler device and less problematic than a timer. I mean, am I correct, Bruce?
Yeah.
Well, what if it's something that we provided a fundraiser for or anything like that? That's got nothing to do with it.
No.
You know?
No.
I mean, it just, you know.
No, all the parks close at dusk.
I think that's a pretty common in any community. They're closed at dusk. I mean, even if you go to, like, what's that walking trail in Munson on, go past the Springfield gun range on the right there. Oh, I forget the name. But any of those conservation sites, they're all dawn to dusk. Mm-hmm. At pretty much anywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if I tried.
Yeah, we did.
I'll be happy now, but what I can do. All right,
Okay.
thanks.
Thanks, Bill. All right, next on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the meeting of November 21st, 2016.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of the meeting.
Second that. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Go right into the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I only had one item that was in your packet tonight, and that's our monthly budget update. Very similar to previous months. We're trending well based on the budget expended at this time of year. We're 43% or 42% of the way through the year. And if you look at the individual divisions within the department, we are generally below those percentages, except in a couple of cases. We've talked about building maintenance in the past, and that we expend a lot of material costs up front in the season, and as we get further and further along in the season, the gap between percent of the year and percent of the budget closes to the end of the year. Snow and ice, no surprise, we're trending very well this year. That changed a little bit today, unfortunately. Energy, the good thing I wanted to point out there is I talked in the past of where we had been trending with higher energy costs than last year through the first 3 or 4 months of the year. You can see that as of this month now, we've closed that gap. And a big piece of that is that we had essentially invested in the solar net metering credits that are generated primarily not only in the summertime, but they're generated the most in the summertime with the long days and the good weather. So those credits that we invest in early in the year that ultimately get applied to bills later in the year. So we're seeing that gap close. One thing that we'll be watching going forward is the gas costs, not the gas usage. We had a very favorable year last year, obviously, from a heating standpoint. We'd love to have another year like we did last year, but we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me if we see our gas usage higher than last year, because it was really an anomalous year, but we're still tracking well, below budget. So I don't believe it's going to be a problem, but if we get into a typical wintertime period, I expect we're going to start to see that percentage higher than last year's percentage for that reason, because last year really was a pretty unique year. Our waste budget is, again, as we talked about before, where we had wanted to be this time of year. Our sewer and water budgets are both looking good. The sewer budget, we're tracking a little bit behind last year because we actually did get a small credit in our true-up from Springfield Water and Sewer this year that helped us to date keep the numbers down a little bit. We're trending on budget, but ahead of last year on the water side, because last year we received a significant credit. This year we actually received a small positive true-up that worked the other direction. So there's reasons, again, why the trends are different than they were last year, but again, safely and comfortably on budget at this point of year. A couple of things I wanted to bring the board up to date on. I went to a meeting held in Long Meadow earlier. Actually, not early this week, today's Monday. Last week, myself, the town planner, the town manager, as well as staff from the town of Long Meadow, and it was continuing to have some discussions regarding the potential medical facility that would be located or may be located at the corner of Maple and Dwight Street, and talking primarily about what required traffic improvements might be and how those improvements might be funded if the project moves forward. Again, there's been nothing finalized to date, but there have been a lot of discussions between the developer and the two towns about working together. And one concept that is being talked about right now is a way to utilize any additional revenue that comes off of the development to fund what could be some fairly significant traffic improvements along there, widening of the road, replacement of the traffic lights, things like that, that are really helping the two towns solve what's been a long-term problem through the revenue that would be realized through the development of that site. So again, early in the planning phase, but that appears to be continuing to move along. And I know the developer is hoping to have that facility in service, I think, by the end of 18, calendar year 18. So
Are they willing to give up a lane?
Yeah, that's the easy part for them.
Is it?
Yeah.
Give up some real estate?
Real estate is fairly easy. There's likely some lane, some street improvements or street width improvements needed on Dwight as well.
Right.
And it looks like those could all fall within the existing right-of-way.
Okay.
So again, this is kind of all concepts. The concepts right now involve probably new lights all the way through.
I figured that much.
Including a light at Converse Street, most likely, coordination between the lights, widening on multiple pieces of the corridor, not just on the Maple Street side, to really help solve what has been a long-term problem. Isn't going to be made any better by the development, but
No.
The development may help to provide the source of revenue for the communities to solve that problem long-term. So you'll likely hear more about that in the future as things become a little bit, more definitive. I think hoping to have plans submitted to the planning board probably in February or so of this year as they nail down.
We would feed them the sewer and water?
Still being discussed. Minimally, we're pushing to provide them with water, and there's a chance that the sewer connection may come through Long Meadow, but there may be some trade-offs there back and forth in terms of, because half of the project would be in Long Meadow, half of the project would be in East Long Meadow. There may be some efficiencies to have a single connection, or,
Right.
and so that may be the way that it plays. We're much better positioned to provide them with water than Long Meadow is. In fact, they don't have a water main on Dwight Street. Springfield Water and Sewer Commission does. We would like to see one of the two communities benefit from that connection as opposed to the commission themselves.
Right.
So again, there may be some offsetting of sewer and water.
Plus, we're talking about replacing that
We are
main.
on Maple Street, yeah.
anyways, whether it goes in.
And that
Right,
and
right.
that would coincide.
That would coincide. The timing, appears to be lining up pretty well. So that feeds into my next item, and I just want to make the board.
I've been called worse.
I did want to make the board aware that we have begun the design work, the base plan development work of that Maple Street water main project. The construction is not funded yet. It's proposed in fiscal 18 capital budget, but we're gearing up to have the design ready to go. So conceptually, we could be, ready to bid the project and possibly get under construction in the summer of 17, so that final paving could be finished up in the summer, say, of 18. So that, again, the two projects could work together very well.
You designing that out-of-house or in-house?
We're designing in-house, but we're using a gentleman we work with actually on John Street and Maple Shade,
Okay.
outside CAD technician.
Yep.
Roy and myself are working together on the design, but he's putting the base maps and the plans together, and then our plan would be to bid it, bid it out of house because it's a major project, but oversee the construction, complete the design internally, but particularly with Dan Murphy moving on now, having somebody dedicated to the actual drafting exercise is something that we're better off outsourcing, but
Makes
he's the
sense.
design responsibility in-house.
Makes sense.
So that's moving along. I did want to note to the board, because we've talked about this a little bit before, about the potential connection with the town of Hamden and/or with the development in Hamden. I'm in the process of putting together a technical memo that I'll put in front of the board as well as put in front of the town manager, really identifying what I see some of the issues, what some of the impacts might be, and what some of the strategies the town may want to employ in that. That would be preparing for discussions with one or both of those parties. Really trying to get the technical information out there so everybody's aware of it, and again, we know what we're dealing with and what we can do, and maybe what we can't do.
Limit the surprises.
Yep. At the last meeting, I talked about the letter, and I shared the letter that I'd written to the Mass DEP regarding a request to extend the deadline for completing infiltration inflow investigations. Right now, by regulation, is December 31st of 2017. And I indicated that 2016 was a very poor year to do investigative work, and I'm expecting 2017, because of the ongoing drought conditions, will continue to be a very poor year to collect the necessary data. It's hard to find problems when those problems don't manifest themselves in terms of increased flows. So you need to wait for the groundwater table to come up for some of those problems to become evident, so then you can take care of those problems. I did finally get a response from Mass DEP. It wasn't necessarily what I'd hoped for. They indicated that they would be willing to provide time extensions to communities, but they would do it through what they call an administrative consent order, which is essentially an agreement between the state and the community that they would allow the community to do something different than what the regulations require, and the community would commit to doing those things by some date certain. Sometimes there may be penalties or the potential for penalties if those revised dates aren't met. I indicated to Mass DEP I didn't think that was going to be looked at very favorably by communities, because it's a higher level of commitment and risk that you take on if you agree to sign an administrative consent order typically. They did indicate, they also then suggested that, particularly in our case where we've done a lot of investigative work to date, that perhaps we could make a case that the work that we've done to date meets the intent of the regulations, and to put that forward as an approach by December of this coming year. So most likely that's the path.
December of 17?
17. If the spring turns out the way I expect it to, and it remains
dry,
at least groundwater tables remain at really historic low levels, or not, if they don't get back up to normal levels, I think we can make a reasonable case that we've gotten a long way towards where they want us to be, if not all the way, with information we already have. So,
yeah, because we've been chasing this for a while now.
and that would, infiltration inflow is something you have to chase forever, because your pipes never get any better.
No, no.
There's always new problems, there's always new
understand,
issues, so it's as much a maintenance type of activity that you have to do all the time.
Right.
Because if you don't do it all the time, it only gets worse. But that might avoid the need to request additional time via an ACO. So I think likely that's the path I'll recommend that we take.
Sounds like the most reasonable one.
Let's see, the last item I think I mentioned in the past, that we had applied through to our insurance company, Mass Interlocal Insurance Agency, for a grant. There are 3 different projects that we applied for. One was a computerized maintenance management system, the software necessary to do that CMMS system. One was an inventory and assessment of street trees, and one was an application we put together for the police department related to training and risk and liability related training for the police department. Eventually they received 256 requests from 166 communities, and the amount of the requests totaled $1.9 million, which was about, they said, a bit more than twice what they actually had money available to fund. If you do the math and try to back into it, it looks like they had around $5,000 per community that they could allocate to these grant efforts. The good news is that we did receive the grant award for $6,900 to implement our computerized maintenance management system. They did not fund the tree assessment or the police department training activity, so we're back on track, moving full speed ahead with Mike Warner, getting the framework of that system set up and getting the organization of the work orders set up so that we can put that in place in the next month or 2, I would hope. So I was happy actually that out of the 3, the one that we wanted most was the one that they ultimately decided to fund. And I think we did probably a little bit better than average relative to funding.
6,900.
I wanted to note to the board that Dan Murphy, whose last day again was on December 1st, is continuing to provide support to us at a day per week. His new position in East Hampton is a 4-day per week position, and he's willing for the next 2 months to provide a day of support to us if needed for the next 2 months, so that we'll be seeing him in town still. There's 3 or 4 items I want him to try to wind down on before he wraps up that time.
So wound down on that first phase of the landfill?
He is. The most important thing I wanted to put together is something known as the closure certification report. It's a document that goes into the state that provides all the quality assurance, quality control information regarding testing of materials, slopes, minimum depths of cover, those types of things that need to be certified and sent into the state. That was completed in draft form, was sent to the state for draft review. We got a few minor comments, and Dan, I believe this week, will be coming to finalize that for sending to the state as final. And I really pushed to try to get that done because that really sets the model for what the second phase report will look like. So if the state's in agreement that this is what they need to see, how they need to see it, then we just need to get the work done, collect the data, and put it together in the same format, and we should be in good shape for phase 2.
Sounds good.
And I did want to remind the board, and I know that Mr. Burak is not going to be able to make it, but the UMEEL is having their annual Christmas get-together on the 16th on this Friday afternoon, and have invited department managers as well as the board to attend that get-together.
I forget.
Squally. 12.
12:30. 12:30.
And that is it for me tonight.
Bruce, you're on for the building manager's report.
Yes, a couple items for the board this evening. Parks-related items, we did kind of finish up the leaf and grounds maintenance portion of for the season. As of probably the beginning of last week, we've been just doing touch-up items as far as branches and things of that nature and pump stations. I do have a list of items that Parks Department is continuing on. We're taking down the fence surrounding the back parking lot of the police station. We have some work orders over at the Birchland Park Middle School. We have some stumps that we are removing. We took down these trees last year. We're going to go into the courtyards over at Birchland Park. They kind of have a new program over there. They're going to be replanting and things of that nature. So we're over Christmas break, we're going to be taking out the stumps. Actually, Mr. Anderson called it a dig safe last week. We're removing all the bushes and everything else that's kind of overgrown within the courtyard over at Birchland Park, and they're going to take it upon themselves to kind of manage some of that and replant some new items or new plants within that courtyard through the school department, and we'll be moving forward on that also. Another item for the board this evening is the town hall renovation. Ref framing is complete. We've actually sheetrocked the ceiling in there. We've framed up the new office. Rough electrical is completed inspection. We have insulated and soundproofed the town manager's office. We have a few more pieces of sheetrock to put up in that office. Then we'll be taping and painting, and then hopefully getting up the drop ceiling grid within the next week or so. Once the drop ceiling grid is in place, then I could get my ductwork person, HVAC guy, to get in there, start extending the ducts, and start putting in our control dampers and everything else. So we're probably, between the holiday and everything else, I gotta say, first or second week of January before we'll be able to move on to the next phase, is actually moving the existing town manager out of her office, taking that existing office, dividing up into 2 spaces, and then subsequently taking down that wall, the old wall between the old selectman's office and the meeting room. So we're on track, so we're moving forward as best we can. Another item for the board this evening is the Northeast Fire Systems. He is completing his design work, drawings, and specifications portion of the bid. He said it's going to be a couple more weeks, so I plan on getting that out to bid early January. I have the front end documents have already been completed. I'm just waiting for his final design and everything else for that portion of the project.
So you think you'll have that before the end of the year?
The specifications and everything else, yeah, I believe so. He said mid to late December, so between the holiday and everything else, probably won't go out to bid till, probably first or second week in January before I start that process. And then get them in there and, probably about 2 months before that'll actually contractor and getting all the submittals and all that stuff. So you're probably talking
April-ish.
March, hopefully, earlier the better, to get that work done. So obviously, I believe they informed the board at our last meeting. Roy and his guys did a great job putting in the new fire service, a new domestic water supply, and everything else. So we're ready to go. Okay. Last item for the board this evening is we did finally receive the Ford Escape, the admin vehicle, about 2 weeks ago. Mr. Perrin actually drove it today. So we have that new vehicle. It's in the fleet, and it's hopefully be a benefit to the department.
The plan is to really make it a pool car for office staff, it's not intended to be just for myself, for the town engineer, for any admin staff, and even, if we have to send guys to a conference or a training event or something like that, where we want to put 3 or 4 or 5 people in one vehicle and send them some distance, it's a more appropriate vehicle than some of the vehicles that we have to try to do that type of thing.
How's your vehicle? these days?
It's working. It's good.
Okay, no,
It's good.
all right.
I don't leave town, so it gets me from A to B. No, it's working fine. I have
Okay.
no complaints.
All right, okay, I know we had problems, really problems with the other
Yeah,
one. right?
yep, yes.
Okay.
So, no, it's
I
running
didn't know if
fine.
we should put in a request for the next,
Not yet.
okay. All right. Roy, Highway and Utility Manager.
And we had our first taste of winter. It was a little taste, but it was enough to
Just a taste.
get the plows out there, you know.
It wasn't a full meal, just a
We
taste.
had Tony and Bruce and his boys that went through all the plows and got everything all ready, so it was a good test. We had just minor things that have to be fixed, but I'd rather find out about them now than during a big snowstorm. So that was good. Tony, I have him on trees now, and we had a substantial list of trees that needed to be taken down. He's done a great job. We're down to just a couple work orders now, and then we'll probably start on plow routes. So any tree or that's on the route that has dead wood in it or encroaching into for a mirror or something, we'll be doing that as soon as these tree work orders are done.
To that end, Mr. Esposito and I have talked about it. We do have some training issues that we have to deal with on some of that work, so we're going to have a meeting tomorrow morning to deal with some of those issues.
It's going to make it more efficient.
Yep.
I was, successfully was able to get a National Grid to take down quite a few trees for us that were near a
Power lines.
power line. Yeah. So, but it was a pretty good deal. They take the tree down, we get rid of the wood and have it stumped if needed. So that's been working out, it's fairly well for us. Mr. Pope has done very well. All the water and sewer services we had are all done now. Like Bruce said, they were able to put that double check in for the fire service and the new domestic meter. So that's all set. Dig safes are still going. They're slowing up, but we're still doing that. All the hydrants are all repaired now. We replaced a couple of them that were broken, so we're good there. We're starting to jet the sewer lines now and camera the mains. Catch basin repairs, we're down to just a couple now. They keep popping up here and there, but we're on top of it. We're going to be starting to repair a couple manholes also that have settled bad. We're trying to get, I believe the asphalt plants are open this week, and maybe it might be a closing soon. So we're trying to get any hot patch or potholes all set. But we have made a bend for berm that we can use during the year. So we have just about the same amount as last year that we can put in our hot box and actually have hot mix rather than use the cold patch. Daryl's doing his second round of testing for the backflows, and a transfer station now is only open on Saturdays, so it's easier. You got to maintain. The leaf season's just about over with. As far as the other trees, a northern tree who got the contract, they're finishing up on a couple more trees, and they're stumping them. So as they do, we take care of the rest. So they did half of it. We took care of it. Now they're doing the other half. We'll continue with that. A cleanup. So just in the future, we're going to be winterizing all the hydrants that don't drain properly around the schools, and I plan to do a lot of a catch basin cleaning too. Get that all squared away. Of course, we'll be doing potholes right along and sewer jetting and camera.
We have agreed, and Roy and I haven't talked about it recently, but we have agreed the last 2 winters we have allowed Columbia Gas on a case-by-case basis to do repair work. They've actually done a pretty good job over the last couple of years. They come in with a very high-quality cold patch that you wouldn't know it was cold patch. And then they come in and they fully restore the trench in the when you can get the hot patch, and they do a very good job of sealing the patches and things like that.
They've come a long way.
Yeah. What the arrangement is, they have to give us a 48-hour notice before they do anything, and if there's any chance of inclement weather and any chance of impacting our operations, we say, no, you can't start the activity. But if the weather looks good and it looks like they can do it and they can patch it and maintain it well over the winter time, we're now on a case by case, and a number of other communities are doing the same thing. I know the town of West Springfield is, as well, as to really allow them, they're out there trying to fix leaks and fix other things that they have to get taken care of. So if they can do it and do it appropriately, we don't want to hold them up.
Right, makes sense.
I will say they've had some leaks on some road, a street that was paved just recently, but they had a leak. And I informed them that their patch needs to be
Upgraded.
Infrared?
Thank you, infrared, and he said no problem. So they came around a couple weeks later, infrareded all those patches. Now you wouldn't even know that there was a patch there almost. They've done, very good work.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
That's it. Wow.
Sounds good. Thank you. Very good time.
I talked to John about scheduling the next meeting, and we've extended an invitation to our new town manager to attend our meetings, and I think the council is meeting on Tuesday, so John and I looked at Wednesday, December 28th.
Looks good to me.
Doesn't good for everybody.
Can't think of a better place to be.
Okay, so the next board meeting will be Wednesday, December 28th,
5 p.m.
5 p.m. at the service building. Motion to adjourn?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.